Welcome to another edition of Tech Fireside Chats with your host, Joel Martin. Take it away, Joel.
All right. Welcome back to another edition of our show. And today's podcast, I'm transmitting live from Lake Eola. And as you can see, I got helicopters, there's cars, there's e-scooters out here. It's the life is coming back to normal, or semi-normal, if you will. And we have a great topic today. I got some great guests. We're going to talk about narrative in games, business, design, something Dan Bilzerian should have had when he was doing the narrative for his company, because you can't really figure out what they did. CBD, I don't know, tobacco. They just put horns on everything, branding everything. But it's important to have your narrative set out from the very beginning. So I got some special guests here today. Let's have them join us. Wow, we got Steven from Code Firm, and Deana and Bobby from 302 Interactive. Hi guys, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
All right, where do we start? We got Steven. You're the narrative expert, and maybe you can take it away. Talk about a little bit about how narrative is important in business and movies, video games, trailers. I don't know.
Okay, so kind of building off what you said, everything should have a narrative. You should know what story you want to tell when you are building something out, whether it be a business, whether it be a video game, whether it be a movie. In entertainment, in music, you want to know the story you're trying to tell. I mean, it even goes so far into like technical aspects. For instance, I found it very funny because I just started a new gig with Code Firm, and you know, there's a ticketing system for submitting problems or bugs, but you know, you write things in what they call like epics, and there are tiers, and it's kind of like telling a 3-act story structure, just broken down into very quick side-by-side things. And everything revolves around the story day to day. Everyone has a story, and so stories are one of the most important things. And speaking as far as narrative, our lives are, even though they're real, it's still a narrative. It's our personal narrative.
How do we bring that back to the world of business? I mean, Bobby, Deana, you deal with narratives in your games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really the importance of narratives and story is because it's at the center of every brand that we love and appreciate. Your example of Dan Bilzerian and kind of what his brand represents, you know, whether he explicitly wrote down that story or told it, with him, since he himself is, you know, is his own branding. The story that he tells is one of luxury, you know, excess, and you know, flashy models. He put himself at the center of CBD and marijuana industry, so that is his brand.
Gambling, and it made no sense. Let's just put the logo on everything, right?
Well,
I mean, I put the logo on a sock, and that's branding.
Right.
That's not hurt. I mean, tell me what is a narrative in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a few projects that we are working on that are just centered around, I mean, everything that we work on is centered around storytelling. But games, more than anything, are 100% about the story, whether the story is written explicitly in words, or it's through a mechanic that literally, you know, centers the game and the story that game is going to tell. I think the most important part is how we're going to deliver that story. Is it going to be visual? Is it going to be, you know, through action or experience or immersion? So many ways to kind of consume stories.
Deana, you bring all this together. You bring something like what Steven does, and you put it in the game, right? I mean, that's your role. And you can explain that a little bit to me.
Yeah, normally we start with an overall theme of what we want to focus on. Do we want the theme to be like relationships or human connection? And we kind of use that to base our story off of, and then we use use that to base our mechanics off of too. So if we have a theme like human connections, we want to make sure to emphasize that with the game mechanics that we're working with.
Well, Steven, I think you might have some examples. I mean, can we share that?
Yeah,
okay.
I think now is actually a great time to share it, as it has just come to my attention that it's all changed a little bit. But So what we're looking at here is we're looking at a script. This is written in a program called Final Draft for a video game being developed by Captilight Studios, or is it Captilight Studios or Captilight LLC?
Captilight Games.
Captilight Games. I work for them and I don't know the proper name. I'm so sorry. So this is just the general idea. And when you're writing a story, so this is a script. When you're writing a story, you have to really start thinking about everything. You have to think about the world that you're creating, the characters that are going into it. And it's kind of essentially when you're starting from scratch and you're building things off of off of an idea, you're basically making things up and then finding ways to put it all together to turn it into something people are going to love and enjoy. And like what Deana was saying is that mechanics and story should play a really good, hand in hand with each other. If you do something in the story, you want to make sure it makes sense in gameplay and game mechanics, because otherwise it might take the player out of the immersive experience. And so this is just really just showing some examples of story that is in the game or that was in the game. This beginning part was essentially just, these are all memories and world building of this Japanese island world, where you have this character who's a wolf who you're going to be playing through or seeing cutscenes of his life and discovering these cutscenes and moving through them. And then as we go further, and this is a very short script, the game doesn't have any dialogue, so a lot of it is writing action and knowing where that action goes.
Steven, how important is that? I mean, I'm doing a pitch. I'm in business. I'm trying to sell this game. How important is the narrative to hold it all? To have this outline to hold it all together.
Okay, so if you were pitching, let's say you were pitching a game, and Bobby and Deana probably have a lot more experience in that aspect than I do, but from my perspective, if you don't have a story, you don't have really much of a marketing thing. Like, there are games out there that are incredibly successful that don't have story in them, but it's the way they're marketed is not based around their story. So it's really falls into how you market what you're working with. If you have a game that's supposed to have a story and supposed to have explanations and supposed to have characters and all this stuff, and you go into it and you don't know your story and you don't know everything, you don't know how to answer the questions that are coming up from the people asking you questions, you're just going to flounder and it's not going to look good. I want to defer to Deana or Bobby on that.
Yeah, Bobby, jump in here, man.
Bobby, you're on mute.
Oh, no.
Sorry, it's the COVID problems. Never know when you're on mute. Never know when you're on topic. Going back to the importance of story, and even in business, there's kind of this 2,000-year-old. I think it was Aristotle, Socrates, one of these old Greeks, right? I'm probably going to miss both this, but there's a structure to persuasion, and the basis of this is storytelling. In a good persuasive argument, you have 5 elements: ethos, logos, pathos, metaphor, and generally, if it's a really good persuasive argument, you can keep it short and concise. But using metaphor and ethos, those are the 2 main components of any persuasive pitch, or if you're in a debate, some sort of argument, and those make up the majority of what you're saying. It's basically a story. You're building on the story. You're building on feeling, and that's what stories are really meant to do, is to evoke feeling and emotion. And in business, you're evoking feeling and emotion for either financial gain or some sort of competitive edge.
That's actually really cool. Sorry, I keep jumping in here. I forget to unmute you, mic. But okay, talk about your game, Deana. Talk about what you're trying to build. I mean, this is the case for world building, and unless you have a franchise or license, and I always go back to GoldenEye, which is one of my favorite games. I'm giving away my age here. Great playable. It's world building to its fullest. You have all the tools of all the evil villains of 007 throughout the years. and it has a narrative, right? It's got a great story. But even if you didn't know James Bond, you can follow and learn how to play, and everything makes sense, right? And I always go back to that as a great video game that has, I guess, a great business plan from the beginning, right? So, what are the essential things that you should look for when building this game and building the world? I mean, you're a game builder. Maybe you can jump in and give us some tips here, ideas.
Yeah, I think definitely like pre-production is super important. Just kind of defining what the story is going to be. How do you want to portray it in terms of like marketing, gameplay, the environment, and yeah, like once you have that down, you have everything that you need to start building the game off of.
Bobby, anything else people should put together when pitching investors these days? I mean, everybody's investing in video games. I think you've sold quite a few lately. Am I allowed to talk about that? I don't know if I can talk about that.
We're always working on some sort of pitch, and we always have some sort of game or story-driven project in the works. I mean, at the center of 302's business is creative storytelling, immersion, and experience. And even with the clients that I was talking to yesterday, they want to build some sort of immersive brand experience that has to do with their bus company. Right. I said it already. Right at the center of it is experience and immersion. They want to tell the story of their brand. Most of our team is made up of creative storytellers with backgrounds in game design, and that gives them the credentials to provide a extremely professional level of experience and storytelling that our clients can rely on.
Steven, is there a trick to world building? I mean, is there like a guide here, something like the 3 steps to get to Mordor?
So there is a really good thing to use. So it's called the 12 Steps to Hero's Journey, and it wasn't so much.
Dan Harmon, Rick and Morty. He always talks about it.
Oh, yes, you may talk about that. You're going to say he created it. Like he didn't.
Have you seen his circle?
His circle?
Yeah, where the hero actually doesn't learn anything at the end and he starts over. He grabbed the hero's journey and he inverted it. So they actually don't learn anything, and it's a step backwards at the end. He uses on Community a lot.
I mean, even then, it's still the hero's journey in a way, though.
Just a hero's failure.
You can reword it and you can rework it, and there's a lot of different people who have gone and like Christopher Vogler and other writers who have looked at the 12 Steps of Hero's Journey, which Joseph Campbell kind of elaborated on and fleshed out, because it's very obvious that stories have been told for hundreds of thousands of years, and I mean the earliest stories are myths or fables, and all stories are designed around this idea to teach you a lesson. It's like when you were a kid and you have like the nursery rhymes, or you have the scary stories when you were a kid that's supposed to instill fear. It's like I remember my mom telling me, don't ever lie or God's going to strike you down, kind of stuff, or stuff like that. Those are they're things that's going to teach you a lesson. What that lesson in particular is, don't lie. Bad things will happen if you do. So the 12 Steps to Hero's Journey, though, is you start off with your ordinary world, your call to adventure, your refusal to call, your meeting with the mentor, your crossing of the first threshold, and then you're in Act 2. And then you've got your test allies and enemies, your approach to the innermost cave, your ordeal, you have your reward, you have your road back, you have your resurrection, and then you have your return with the elixir. And those 12 steps are something you're going to find in everything. You can break down 12 steps into your day-to-day life and apply it that way. So it's a really good thing to use to get you started in trying to figure out your story. And your story should start with creating a character. And my opinion, when you create a character, you should start with the personality. You should start with the character traits and the aspects. And then you should determine who you want that character to be with those traits and aspects. That's something I'm discovering a little bit more recently right now in our current social climate, because, I feel like it may come across that sometimes people are creating characters to try and pander, as opposed to creating characters that are authentic. So you have the 12 steps of your hero's journey, and you create a powerful protagonist or a great protagonist, but they have to be somebody who has to learn something.
How do you bring that to business?
So bringing it to business, think about yourself as a hero in your own story. Okay, Joel, let's talk business. Let's talk the show, right? Like this morning when you woke up, what did you do today? What's your life like before you leave the house?
Well, right now I'm trying to figure out how not to get rained on because it's raining out where I'm at. So I'm going to let you take it away. Bobby, jump in here.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I'm a guest on this show. I've worked with Steven a little bit and with Deana more extensively. But I do want to hear more about this Path to Kami project. Having worked with you guys on different projects. Tell me more about the project that you're working on right now.
Okay, so Deana, do you want me to take this or you?
Yeah, you can take it. I love to hear like you explain like how you kind of put together like the story and like the background of all the characters.
Okay, so the first thing I did was I heard that Deana needed a narrative designer, so I went and sat down with her, and when she brought me on board, I talked to her about what she wanted to accomplish and wanted to take a look at the characters and the notes and everything, and then I pretty much went back to my room or my office, so to speak, and I kind of thought about it for a few days. I thought about it and was just thinking about these characters, the world, and trying to discover and learn about that time period. Learn a little bit more about Japan. Learn a little bit more about wolves and dogs in Japan, because Japanese wolves, to my knowledge, from what I've discovered, don't exist anymore. And I learned that through research for this game. So I sat there and I was like, okay, I know what we need, and here's what we need. We need 4 characters, and we need to build a story around them, and the story needs to be based around this idea of resurrection or this idea of new rebirth. And so I went into the zone, so to speak, and I just started thinking. It started with the character names first. I sat down, I Googled different types of names. I was like, okay, we know different elements we want to include in this. We know there's a puzzle game focus here. So what does this translate into in Japanese? What does it translate back to in English? What does this translate to? And moving back and forth until I started creating amalgamations of certain words and made them names. And that's how the characters first got created. I knew their elements and I knew what Deana wanted. And then I was like, let me give them names, because when you give something a name, now it has essentially an idea, it has a life. And so then once I created that, then it was sitting down and thinking like, okay, where does the story start? I know what it has to accomplish. I know where it has to go. So the ordinary world, where is our main character? And he's a young wolf who has a group of friends, and they all get along very well. And they all have different personality. Welcome back, Joel. It's good to see that you didn't melt out there.
You gotta go back indoors, and might as well.
Looking a little moist there.
So
I heard about the wolf though.
So creating the world next, and creating that ordinary world for the main character, and then going to the other characters would be like, what were their lives like before they all met each other, and what was that story? And then when the story does pick up and it's changed, so I guess I can be a little bit more freewheeling with how I talk about it, but the main catalyst of it all is that your character, your wolf character, the one you play as, he is he faces a tragic end that is done pretty much off camera, that the player is aware of, but not until a certain point in the story. But it's a very short point in the story, and as it was previously, you would be traveling through a spirit world with your wolf friends, and you would be trying to figure out a way to, live on, to be more. And the ending was, I hope the ending can stay the same, because I really like that. So I'm a little worried that it's gone now. I think Deana knows what I'm talking about. There's like a very powerful
we don't want to give away your trade secrets.
Yeah, it's we don't want to spoil it for anyone here right now before it's even
coming
released.
With narrative plot devices here. I'm trying to figure out what these toys do. Well, I mean, this applies to everything. Business, it applies to trailers, because I saw some trailers over the weekend at the DC fandom that just made no sense because they were giving away the whole movie. I think you shouldn't have to give away the movie, right? So I think there's this narrative. Bringing a good narrative should be to everything. They should apply this to everything. I mean, you should have somebody lay it out for you, whether it's a business plan, a mobile game, because not everything is going to be GoldenEye, right? And especially if you're not part of a franchise. If I've never seen Batman, I have no idea what this guy's doing dressed as a bat. Why he's at a crime scene. I don't know. He's a detective. I don't know where he came from, right? If you don't know who the Riddler is, it's just a guy with a question mark. So I don't know. Just it makes sense to me. It does make sense. That it's great that you're laying all this out, Stephen, because you want to know that before you pour thousands of dollars into a game or into a project, you want to know that it's going to be fleshed out the right way, right? Because some people want real details. They want to get into the world building stuff. They want to know what that cup looks like in the novel. What's it going to look like on the screen? What's it going to play like in the game? So it all has to translate, the right way. Am I hitting these notes right? Deana, you're the designer. Tell me.
Yeah, I think really writing down like the story and how you're going to execute on it is really important. I know for Path of Kami, we've done like a lot of iteration on the story and on the gameplay itself, and kind of understanding the feelings that you want to convey to the player and like all the different elements that involve with that. Because I mean, the story is going to be, and I guess in games, part of, or most of the players are going to be doing is actually playing the game. So it's kind of figuring out how you can convey the story in terms of like gameplay mechanics, in terms of like the environment. What do you mean, like the environment? Kind of, I think a good example of doing like environmental storytelling is a game called Journey. Abzu, games that are kind of categorized as art games. They kind of use shapes, like language shapes, in terms of like buildings, like color palettes.
It actually reminds me of one of the plots from *Halt and Catch Fire*. You guys ever watch that show?
No, I haven't.
You ever seen *Halt and Catch Fire*? Oh God! All right, here I am talking about an AMC property. You can catch it on Netflix, but it's about video game designers in the 1980s, and they start designing games for old IBMs, like the first ones, the floppy disk games, the choose your own adventure sort of thing. But then eventually they get into the first dial-up BBSs, where you play games online with other people. And then eventually it becomes computer games and console games, but they go through the whole motion. I highly recommend this show for anybody that's into computers or video game design, or want to see like how things were in the distant past, right? Like the 19. It's a fictional show, but one of the games that they develop is a game that has no rules, no explanation, and it's a flop. You have to go in there and figure what everything does based on emotion, or the sort of like that game Myst. Did anybody remember Myst from the early 90s? No? Before your time? Too old? Oh, you remember.
I never played it.
No, but it's all about you go into the room and you have to figure out what the things do. The key might not necessarily be for the door. It might be for the cupboard, or for the window or something, right? So it's you get to try the environment and figure out new solutions to things. So that's what that was the reason she designed this game. One of the main characters, Mackenzie Davis, the actress, but nobody liked the game because it flopped, because it wasn't a by the numbers game where everything just makes sense, right? You had to figure things out. And I thought it was a genius idea to put that in the narrative of that show. Let's get back to narrative. Because most people won't understand that. It was like A to B to C to D. That's the way you want the game to go. And this was more of a game where you might need to go A to D to get back to B and then go to F, right? I mean, like there was no one way to play the game. It was a very interesting concept, but it was too early in the 1980s. Like those types of games are normal now. But back in this fictional 1980s where the show's cast, nobody could understand it. Anyways, please watch the show. You guys are you have to watch the show. It's a show about video games. Anyway, sorry, take it back.
Put that on my watch list.
Yeah, I'll send you the link in a few minutes. Halt and Catch Fire.
Yeah, I think there's all kinds of fun ways to convey a narrative to the player, like their cutscenes, like in-game quick time events, and just like color theory, all kinds of ways you can convey the narrative.
Fantastic. Bobby, anything you want to throw in? Like what do you get? What type of work do you guys do at 302 for people that want to build this type of narrative?
Yeah, and thanks for that softball there, Joel. But we really start with the story and the experience first. Many of my client meetings are not really about what we can do from a technology standpoint. Our studio develops, XR experiences, virtual reality, augmented reality games, mobile apps, all sorts of experiences across, technical expertise. But where we really focus and we shine with our clients is to put experience and storytelling at the forefront of the projects that we work on. And it's almost uncompromising when we even choose our clients, right? If we don't believe in the story or the product being developed, we won't take it on, because that story is not good enough for us, right? We're not just going to simply work for the check. We're going to work and invest ourselves as creative storytellers in the projects that we believe in.
You can say no to the client. That's why I always tell people, sometimes you don't want to work on a game. And again, back to that show that I just mentioned, you might want you got to watch the show. It's a great show. They say no to the client, right? Oh, Steven's seen it. Steven's like...
No, Steven's raising his hand.
Oh, okay. Oh, you have a question? Jump in, man.
Well, I have a question. I want to say something because I have worked with both Deana and Bobby, and I want to say for the people out there watching, it's like if you need people who know what they're doing and are going to help you figure things out and help you accomplish your goals, these are the people you want to talk to. You want to talk to 302. You want to talk to Captilight. You want to work with them because these are people who care about what they create with their clients. And I just wanted to take a minute and shout that out for them because I work with both of them. I worked with Bobby on some things with photography and helping with some writing stuff, and I work with Deana as her narrative designer. And
I like that whole you're not doing it for the paycheck thing, but that's true. You want to be passionate about the projects you take on. Like I really believe in your idea. Let's develop this. Let's call Steven about narrative. Let's get Deana for game design, right? Like what is the game about? What is the story here? So those are all very important things, but this is business 101. I mean, you can't just throw your logo on some underwear and CBD and gambling and call yourself a brand, because next thing you know, you lost 50 million, which I think this was yesterday. That's the number everybody's quoting. So bring it back to the original topic, right? Yeah. Narrative.
Steven, and by the way, that's a hero's journey right there.
Exactly.
Your world, your characters. You set me up, you set Bobby up, you set Deana up, and then we go on this special world journey together, which is this whole thing, and then you wrap it up at the end, and that's your story.
I'm having my elixir. It's water. Remember, you said elixir?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, what are you drinking, Deana? Is that coffee?
Oh, it's water, but it's in my Orlando City cup, representing Orlando.
Nice.
Right. I'm going to represent the 502s.
Oh, both VWs. I think that's Bobby. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like when somebody comes in and you don't believe in how do you work backwards? How do you get them to see that maybe there has to be a better vision here than what they're trying to pay you to do, right?
Yeah, it all comes down to asking a better question, right? Usually clients come to you with questions. What we usually do is ask them better questions is what I like to say. And that happens, week to week with us, where we'll get a call or an email or somebody who's got an idea or a project and they have no idea what that thing is. Mind you, I don't mind taking those calls or those meetings. Again, I get to educate them on and maybe help them come to a better conclusion.
But this is a process. And what you're talking about is a business process, right? You're guiding somebody who is basically wants to invest, especially now that everybody's buying and investing into games, mobile apps, because everybody's at home, right? So usage is through the roof. So they come to you and you're really sitting down with them. You're saying, what is the business process? Then you get somebody like Steven from Code Firm and you say, hey, Steven, can you sit down and come up with the narrative, the world building, right? The little details that make this game special that, are going to keep me up at night. So before I go to sleep, I'm like, oh, I forgot to do that. I got to log back in. Right.
I should point out, because the way you just said that Code Firm is a fully managed frontier tech solutions company. I happen to have narrative design skills that I bring to the table working for them.
And that applies to everything, right? I mean, that can apply to a VR experience. It can apply to an AR journey, like a scavenger hunt. I mean, you're applying those skills to multiple aspects of what the company does.
Right, exactly. Coming up with, commercial ideas or content ideas or things that help tell the story of what we're trying to accomplish, what we want people to see that we have accomplished, and all the amazing things we can do and we will do.
Any last thoughts, guys? Because we're on time here. Deana, how do you build an amazing game? Like, what is the secret? Because you're like, this top-notch game designer. You got to tell me. What's the secret?
I know I kind of said it already, but lots of pre-production and planning.
Oh, no, I thought there was like a secret sauce. What's the secret sauce?
Secret sauce? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Imagination? Figment, the little
just
dragon,
and keeping at it no matter what.
Good. Yeah, keep it fun, right?
Yeah.
Steven, thank you so much for the topic today and for coming up with the narrative and showing us what a really well fleshed out narrative looks like. And I think that applies to everything, man. It applies to business solutions, XR, VR. Thanks for showing that. I didn't think you guys would show something like that on screen, but that was great. Bobby, you can say no to the client. I got homework for everybody. You got to watch *Halt and Catch Fire*. It's one of the best shows. It applies to what we do. You got to watch it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for your time today. It's raining. I'm glad I got some fun. Hey, look who it is. It's our other co-host. He's on the show. And we got some questions for Troy. Troy, jump on the show here.
Thanks for watching and join us next week on Tech Fireside Chats.